I used to be the king of great shows being canceled before their time. I've been very fortunate that our shows have gone on to have a really nice fan and cult following, which I'm really happy about. A lot of my video games are like that also, like Psychonauts and Destroy All Humans. So I never like targeted that niche, I just seemed to fall into that niche. And as far as the Nicktoons, I'm really grateful for it because a lot of shows that haven't been seen in a long time get to be seen again. So I'm ecstatic. Veronica?
I'm very happy for you.
Thank you.
Well, I do think ratings are important. I do think in other countries, especially with Japan, they allow different things on TV than we allow here. I don't think we need to see that much violence on Saturday morning. So I'm kind of happy for ratings in that sense. I do miss the days of getting up in the morning and turning on cartoons that I haven't seen over and over, and just being able to like put aside my chores and sit down and watch a couple hours of cartoons that are fun and imaginative, and like with Scooby-Doo, for example, to be able to go on that adventure, a little mystery. I don't like things so spelled out for me. Oh my God, there's so many infomercials, aren't there? But I've got a lot of products at home in my backpack.
Ricky and I like to start our Saturday mornings with violence.
I remember in Ichiban I asked you, what do you remember from watching Nickelodeon and Cartoon Network? I learned that you do enjoy watching cartoons, but I asked, what do you remember watching from those two channels? For example, like, do you remember the Rugrats? Do you remember Rocko's Modern Life, Angry Beavers, and Ren and Stimpy? And in Cartoon Network, there was Dexter's Laboratory, Ed, Ed and Eddie, the Powerpuff Girls, Johnny Bravo, Time Squad, Grim and Evil, all those things. What do you remember from watching those two channels?
All of us, or just...
Well, you and him, mainly, but mainly you.
I love Johnny Bravo, but I have to think for a minute. I'm not prepared for this question.
Do you know what my mom loves?
The names of my favorite ones.
Oh, okay. She loves Samurai Jack.
Oh, yeah, that's really good.
Samurai Jack, I could watch all day long. It's just back to back to back. Samurai Jack is just awesome. We would look forward to every single new one that would come. Those girls are so
I liked Grim and Evil.
I feel cartoons change nowadays and they're just not as appealing as the past was. So where are those cartoons now when you miss them? Are they on Boomerang? Are they on a different cartoon channel?
Where are the old?
Yeah, where are they? I want to watch them. I miss Max Steel.
Can I field that?
What?
Part of the reason the current stuff doesn't seem as good to you now is because you're not the person you were then. I've actually had a long conversation going on in a thread regarding what goes on with a lot of the current channels. And you have to remember that cartoons are primarily made at who they're selling products for, which is 13-year-old kids. When you're 13 years old, you're really excited at everything because it's all new. And it's a good friend of mine is one of the co-creators of Halo. And I think one of the worst things I ever did to her was give her a box set of Electro Woman and Dyna Girl because she came back crying afterwards saying, I love this show, and it's god-awful. So,
what's interesting is, like, when you're saying that, what I hear in your question about what do you remember about watching Rugrats, what I remember is I didn't watch those because I was an adult. I wasn't a little kid when you were a little kid watching that, so that's not, I watched Popeye cartoons on TV that were in black and white, and I loved them.
Looney Tunes?
I did.
Looney Tunes?
I watched Looney Tunes, I watched all of these old cartoons, and you know, it's different. So I think that Matt's right. I think that you identify a lot with those cartoons that you watched as a kid because those were happy times, and if I go back now and watch some of those shows that I liked when I was a kid, I think they are terrible.
I wasn't saying that it was the happy times, but what it is it's all new, it's all different. And as you get older, your experience becomes more that you want more, you're expecting more. If you go back and watch those shows, quite often you find the depth. Now, some of them, like Real Ghostbusters, okay, that one had some really good scripting. There's a lot of really good shows out there now. You just have to know where to look for them. You know,
The internet.
There's not the internet. The internet is there, obviously. There's lots of things, but there's simply the example I've always used is the Disney Channel. Anyone who watches the Disney Channel and watches the live-action sitcoms on there is like, what?
Where's Mickey Mouse?
Is, those are made for 13-year-old kids who've never seen a sitcom before, and we've all seen the, oh, he fell down, isn't that funny joke a zillion times. But for the 13-year-old kid who's never seen it before, The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody, that is hilarious stuff. So it's who it's being made for and pitched for. And you just have to accept the fact that as you get older, your tastes change.
Well, it depends on our taste of humor. Also,
your body's all the cells in your body have completely been replaced every 10 years.
I still love Tom and Jerry.
Every 10 years you're a brand new person. So you are literally died.
I am never dying.
I wanted to say something about what you were saying.
Can I add something? Okay, so I think it was like a couple of years ago. I used to love Rainbow Bright, but I didn't really watch it in English. I never saw it in English until a couple of years ago. But a fan of mine gave me a copy of Rainbow Bright and the Star Stealer because it never came out in Japan in theaters. So when I got it, it turned into a bit of a drinking game. And it got to a point where it's like me and the entire animation studio sat around and we were like, oh gosh, it's like who can watch, more than 5 minutes without going, every 5 seconds, and we had to drink. So, my childhood was ruined.
It's gonna be tough 10 a.m.
Yeah. You mentioned something also about sort of the elements of, whether it's good writing or, I just think Samurai Jack is just beautiful to look at. Didn't we all get introduced to Wagner from Looney Tunes? They're just, whether it's the music or voice acting or the writing or, whatever it is, there are elements of these that can also stick with you that kind of inform as your tastes change and as what's available changes, that's kind of inform what we're attracted to, too, over time.
Yeah, but I will point out that Looney Tunes, the reason Looney Tunes and Tom and Jerry and things like that have so much staying power is those weren't done for kids. Back then, those went on the front of regular motion pictures. They were just another entertainment form, and they were written at the dual levels with the idea of appealing to everybody. And that's why Looney Tunes especially have held on so well.
Yeah,
There's
I
a
remember
lot of
seeing
stuff
them
in
at the
there.
beginning.
There's some brilliant wordplay that you don't catch on. It's like watching Bullwinkle. The animation is god awful.
Right.
The scripting in Bullwinkle is still to this day hilarious.
That's why I like Adventure Time.
Hey, can I say
My
something?
favorite story about Bullwinkle is we talk about all the technology and everything. You know how they recorded Bullwinkle? They went to the lead animator's house, who also was the voice of Bullwinkle, and they sat around the coffee table passing microphone around. You don't even want to know what the budget on an episode of Bullwinkle was.
Like $12.
This is 1960s, $1,700 to do an entire episode, including the animation.
Well, anyone who's interested in doing voiceover at all, that is starting from the ground up, I always recommend they take improv and acting classes first and foremost. Improv and acting classes. And then if you want to take further classes after that, you want to take classes with people who are actually in the business. People who are casting people are great to be. People who are actually voiceover, people that are doing it are good teachers. Most of them. And then after that, the last thing you want to do is do a demo until you've done all of that stuff. Because once you do that demo, you're out there.
Except if you're auditioning for the Texas studios, because none of us listen to demo tapes, they go in the trash. Sorry. Open auditions. We have people come in. But we found, because we're doing all ADR, nothing but ADR, that's something that you can't tell if someone can do that from a demo tape. Yeah, you can listen, oh, it's a nice voice, but put a lot of great actors up there and say ADR, and you hear all these major Hollywood actors who are now ADRing the Miyazaki films. They're all like, oh my God, that's the hardest thing I've ever done. Thank you. Yeah, it is. And it's a skill set that is just good. But I should add also, the other thing is, if you're looking to get into this business, everyone up here says, please don't, there's not enough work already, so wait till a couple more people die.
But if you do want to get into animation, like original animation and like Cartoon Network stuff that's not dubbed or ADR, then you do still need a demo reel. But you can't start, you're not going to start in animation, I'll tell you that right away. You have to start with a commercial demo. Once you get a commercial demo, then you get an agent, because an agent won't usually sign you just because you do animation, because it's a tough field to break into, as you just pointed out. But yeah, a lot of people don't listen to demos anymore, but I still think they're important if you get into them.
Yeah, he was just saying not for anime. Not as much for anime, but yeah, for everything else, you do need to have one. And how to get into it, right at this particular time, I don't know. It's difficult because the industry has really shrunk considerably over the last few years. They still are from time to time hiring new people, but it's just a lot more difficult because there are thousands of actors and only so many jobs. So it's really difficult. But I think the most important thing is, like what Richard said, getting the training, getting the experience, making connections. And if you're in the acting industry, and you're, like, for example, my friend Chris Ayers, who's directing quite a few anime lately, the way he finds new people, should he need some new people, is he's also a theater director, and he finds them in the theater. So the thing about acting is to do it. And if you're doing it, that's how you meet people, and that's how you get more jobs. So.
I wanted to kind of riff on that a bit. Claire and I are actually a good example of, being able to kind of adapt to our situation. Because, because, like, for a long time, we were anime voice actors. But, of course, Monster Island, it was just down the street from where we used to live. And, unfortunately, the market just really dried up. So, instead of just quitting completely, we've kind of adapted and become more video game voice actors. So you either have to be willing to go out and go to Houston or go to Dallas, and it's like go after those already shrinking market for anime, or you kind of adapt and kind of go with the times.
Hold on.
Speak in the microphone.
Yeah, go ahead. Who inspired us to be a voice actor?
Desperation.
Washington. Benjamin.
I started out in theater. I started out as a dancer and doing musical theater, and that's sort of like almost the opposite. And then sort of worked my way from one thing to the next thing, and then lots of on-camera stuff, and then somehow it's like, I don't have to have the right outfit to go to an audition. I don't have to. The voice acting part was very attractive in that way. But when you're trying to make a living as an actor, you'll take anything that's morally acceptable at some point in your life, and it's
morally acceptable.
Morally acceptable is important. And mostly
my standards are very, very low, though.
Yeah. When you're hungry.
I used to, I watched Looney Tunes and all of those things, so I guess, Mel Blanc was an inspiration, but as a kid, I don't know that I really knew necessarily who all the voice actors were. I liked imitating them, and I don't know if there was a certain person that inspired me to get into voice acting. I just always had an affinity for it, and I was just drawn to doing it.
All the voices all the fun stuff, all the like we'd all sit around practicing our accents with each other, and you know, like everybody sort of passed the accent along. Did you guys kind of grow up with a lot of that stuff, like other people now?
I did it
all alone in a room.
I did it into a tape recorder.
Yeah. Oh, that's great.
I'd actually rig my tape recorder, my cassette recorder, to do multi-tracks, and I would do entire shows. Because I wanted to do movies, but I didn't have the money to do it on Super 8 film, so I did it on audio cassettes, just relaying all the characters over.
Ours were all plays in the living room. We didn't save them.
That's amazing. You are my inspiration. That's really amazing. That's so. I just pushed play, and then that's really neat.
You should go back and evaluate what you did.
Well, it's terrible.
Change for the next
Because it
time.
wasn't designed to do that, so every generation got worse and worse and worse. But, you know, it was just blank crap.
Most of the sound effects in the performances I did were things like the toilet flushing.
Yes. We did a fire.
Yes.
I just looked at voice acting as just a way to get the character expressed. I never really thought about that I was, trying to just be a voice actor. I just thought that character needed a voice to be filled. But when I was a kid, I just played with puppets all the time. So I guess I could say, and I was obsessed with the Muppets. So I guess Jim Henson maybe. But I never really thought of voice acting as this is what I'm supposed to be doing. This character needs a voice, so I had to put it in. So.
Yeah, I feel the same. I always wanted to be an actor, and so this is just an extension of acting. I never really set out to be a voice actor, but I just happened to do a lot of work on cartoons, which I love to be able to fill that tiny space, with all of the action and all of the objectives and everything, but have it funneled into just lip flap.
I thought this was the Avengers panel. I don't know why I'm here.
Yes, Harry Potter. Are you Harry Potter? You're Slytherin, okay.
Yes.
I think do everything you can, just act. Be in your school plays, be in your community plays, get a job at a theater, do whatever you can to stay in that field. Then you meet people, you challenge yourself, and then you're constantly figuring out what you can do and what you never thought you could do.
And have fun.
I'm going to give a boring answer and say take some sort of contract legal classes so that way you know what you're signing your name to. Because if you look at a contract, it's really intimidating. And if you don't know what's in there, you might screw yourself over in the future.
What difference do we see between new and old cartoons?
One was on before, one's on now.
It depends on the cartoon. Every single one of them is different. I don't really see the difference.
Does it seem to you that like the scenes were different lengths, or there's little technical things that make it feel different, just sort of in a general way?
What I was going to say is it's the technology that's available at the time is what makes things available. The classic Looney Tunes and Warner Brothers shows, Tom and Jerry and stuff like that, they were done from the theaters. They were done on very high budgets, full animation. When it went to TV, there was a huge change where everything was something about the budget, and animation became very limited and all about talking. It was all dialogue with occasionally a funny pratfall or something. And what's happened over the last 30 years or so is the technology has come back in and allowed the fuller animation to start coming in. But I think for a lot of the shows, it has become more about the look of the show than necessarily the stories never evolved. You can make anything, and now basically cell animation is effectively dead, except in rare cases it's just too expensive. So it's all going to CG. And with CG it goes to motion capture, and motion capture requires an entirely different field because when you see a character moving realistically, the voice acting has to be different, the structure has to be different, it plays differently. You can't do something quite as crazy as some of the older shows. It's just it's an ongoing evolution.
I don't think that is. I think I have an answer to that.
Well, I was going to say one other thing that I would add to that is also the broadening of the audience. Because when I was a kid, there weren't that many cartoons that were aimed at an older audience. They were usually aimed at a fairly young audience. And now you have a lot of cartoons that are, like little kids, teenagers, adults. I love Venture Brothers. There's Family Guy, The Simpsons, which has been on forever. But there's a lot of cartoons now that are specifically aimed at adults, and I think that's a big difference. And it's become a lot more acceptable that you're an adult and you watch cartoons.
I think I'm kind of the odd person out because when I was a kid, I was over in Asia, and it's in the 80s and late 70s. The cartoons I grew up with were extremely patriotic. I mean, it's like we had Yamato's space. What is it called? Sorry, I'm trying. Star Blazers. I had Doraemon, I had Anpanman, I had Saint Seiya, but Barefoot Gen. But a lot of the cartoons that I watched as a kid were very pro Japan, imperial. We didn't lose the war. So my views are kind of skewed.
Can I say something about that? Maybe the answer to that would have to be the level of humor and the level of violence.
The level of humor and the level of violence, right? That humor has decreased or increased.
I think it's decreased.
And violence has increased.
All of them.
And it's all very fast.
Wait a minute, they stuck a dynamite thing in
Up the coyote's ass. It varies. It's a dependent thing.
violence is different.
And for God's sakes, Popeye and Bluto never went 30 seconds without beating the crap out of each other. Tom and Jerry chased each other around with hatchets.
Pluto and Brutus were literally sexually harassing Olive Oil on a regular basis.
Oh, and there's Pepe Le Pew and the cute little cat that he raped.
When he was a bully. And Popeye was anti-bullying.
And then he proved it through his fists. I am anti-bullying.
And vegetarian.
That's like spanking your kids. You will not do it again. You will not hit your brother.
So when you think of your childhood, the first thing you think of is cartoons. That's the most memorable thing. What is it about? What do you all think that it is about cartoons that makes them so makes them stick with you?
When you think about your childhood, you think about cartoons, and what is it that makes cartoons stick with you?
It was a gift. It was something just for us. I mean, that somebody went out and went to a lot of trouble to make something just for you. And you could wake up early and nobody else is awake in the house, and you could turn on the TV and there was somebody who was entertaining you. And it wasn't something aimed at your big brother or, your little sister or your parents. It was right for you. And of course, obviously, that was self-selecting. We would choose the things that we, were most attracted to. But there were always, now still different levels. Somebody's mentioning Dora, and then somebody's mentioning Adventure Time, and just lots of different specific levels.
Actually, the answer is that Pokemon becomes your role model. Teaches you good things.
If it teaches you good things and becomes a role model, yeah.
Tattoos.
And I think too that escape
Ball
from reality.
hockey. Ball hockey.
I want to learn things. We're in
You don't
school
learn
all
anything
week.
from animation unless they want to tell you that, but most shows don't.
But I like the camaraderie and with Scooby-Doo, for instance, I loved how they all were just off on these adventures. I love that escape from my own reality, that I could lose myself in a cartoon.
I didn't watch a single cartoon when I was a kid that was aimed at children. I hated them. I hated Scooby-Doo. I hated the Flintstones. Well, Flintstones actually for adults. They made me angry. They just made me so angry. I watched science fiction. I liked the $6 Million Man and things like that. I got into this sort of stuff through the Muppets because they still felt like they weren't talking down to me. And then I moved on
That's
into
right, Ricky.
that's right. No.
Very smart, Ricky.
But there are still shows like that aren't talking down to you. That's why I liked Adventure Time. That's a show I would have liked as a kid. It's not talking down to you. It's just funny, you know. There's a level when you can feel the cartoon going. You didn't like that, did you? Yeah. Then. What's what?
What's your favorite Adventure Time cartoon?
Character? Lumpy Space Princess. Bloaty the pig. President!
Zim needs no presidency. Zim will rule you all with an iron fist.
I think it would be Ash Ketchum for president, totally.
But he would have Amelia as his vice president because she loves truth and justice.
That said, don't forget to tweet us at Richard Horvitz, Horvitz.
I don't have a Twitter account.
No Twitter.
Okay, after today.
Said pandering.
Anyone else?